Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive, where we're going to be talking about vultures.
Vultures.
Yeah, vultures.
Okay.
So we've got a bunch of research articles here, and I
Yeah.
think it's going to be really interesting to kind of get into this and see what's going on with vulture conservation.
Right.
Um, so, when I think of vultures, I always picture them kind of like circling over,
Yeah.
like
A
that.
dead animal.
Yeah, like something dead right.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of the right image, or are there other?
I mean, I think that's the classic image that people have of vultures, right?
Right.
But it's not always accurate.
Mm.
There are some vultures that actually don't eat carrion.
Oh.
There's the palm nut vulture in Africa, for example.
Wait, are there vegetarian vultures?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, they primarily feed on fruit.
It's wild.
So it really challenges our assumptions about what a vulture should look like or, what they should eat.
So how do they get like enough nutrients from fruit?
Well, the palm nut vulture, it's specifically adapted to exploit the oil palm fruit,
Okay.
which is very rich in calories and fat.
Oh, interesting.
So it gives them all the energy they need.
So it's like a specific kind of fruit that they
Exactly. They found their niche.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's not the only example. There are Egyptian vultures that use tools like rocks
Oh, wow.
to crack open ostrich eggs.
Really?
And then you've got the bearded vulture, which actually prefers bones.
Huh.
They drop them from great heights to access the marrow inside.
Oh, that's interesting.
So yeah, there's a lot of diversity in the vulture world.
It seems like a lot more than I thought.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I always thought,
Like one type.
yeah, kind of like one type of vulture.
Yeah, the sort of stereotypical circling over a carcass.
Right, right.
But there's a lot more to them than that.
That's so cool. Okay, so our sources are indicating that a lot of vulture populations around the world are actually in trouble.
Yeah.
What's causing that decline?
Well, it's a multifaceted problem.
Okay.
There are a number of threats that they're facing,
Okay.
and many of them are driven by human activities, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So poisoning is a major issue,
Okay.
both accidental and intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Vultures can also be electrocuted by power lines.
Oh, really?
They can lose their habitat due to development
Right.
and suffer from a decline in their natural prey.
Oh, wow. So there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, it's a pretty dire situation for a lot of vulture species.
I'm particularly interested in learning more about vulture conservation in Cambodia.
Okay.
What can you tell us about that?
Well, Cambodia is a really crucial country for vulture conservation.
Okay.
It's home to several threatened species, including the slender-billed vulture,
Oh.
which is critically endangered,
Oh, wow.
the white-rumped vulture, which is endangered,
Okay.
and the red-headed vulture, which is near threatened.
So there's a lot of different vultures that are
Yeah, there's a significant diversity of vultures in Cambodia,
in Cambodia.
and they're all facing some pretty serious threats.
When you say critically endangered, how many are we talking about? Like how many slender-billed vultures are there left in Cambodia?
Well, it's difficult to give an exact number, but estimates suggest there could be as few as 500 individuals remaining in the entire country.
500.
That's a very...
So few.
It's a very precarious situation.
What are the main threats to vultures in Cambodia?
So many of the threats are the same, as we discussed earlier,
Okay.
but some are particularly acute in Cambodia.
Like what?
Habitat loss due to deforestation and agricultural expansion is a major issue,
Okay.
as is poisoning, both accidental and intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And the illegal wildlife trade is another significant problem.
Really?
Yeah, sometimes vultures are targeted for their body parts, which are used in traditional medicine.
No, that's awful.
Yeah, it's a real shame.
So are there people like working to protect them in Cambodia? Are there organizations doing that?
Yeah. Thankfully, there are a number of dedicated organizations working to conserve vultures in Cambodia,
Okay.
including the Wildlife Conservation Society, WCS,
Okay.
the Angkor Center for Conservation of Biodiversity, ACCB,
Got it.
and BirdLife International.
Okay, great. And what are those organizations doing? Like what kind of work are they doing?
They're involved in a wide range of activities, including research and monitoring to understand vulture populations and identify threats.
Okay.
They also work on mitigating those threats
Okay.
through measures like establishing protected areas,
Okay.
reducing poisoning incidents, and combating the illegal wildlife trade.
So it sounds like they're doing a lot of important work.
Yeah, they're really on the front lines of vulture conservation.
So how does Cambodia's commitment to vulture conservation compare to other countries?
Well, Cambodia is actually considered a leader in vulture conservation in Southeast Asia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've made significant strides in protecting these birds.
Okay.
But of course, there's always more that can be done.
All right, so we've talked about the threats to vultures, but I want to kind of circle back to why their conservation is so important.
Yeah,
You mentioned that they're nature's cleanup crew,
right.
but what does that really mean for the ecosystem and for us?
So vultures play a vital role in maintaining the health of ecosystems
Okay.
by removing carrion, which can harbor disease-causing bacteria and attract pests.
Oh, okay.
So their scavenging services help prevent the spread of diseases to wildlife and humans.
Got it.
And they also contribute to nutrient cycling in the environment.
Wow, so they're doing a lot more than I even realized.
Yeah, they're really essential for a healthy planet.
So by keeping the ecosystems healthy, they're indirectly protecting human health as well.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
It's all connected.
It really is. Everything is interconnected in the web of life.
Right.
And the decline of one species can have ripple effects throughout the entire ecosystem.
It's a reminder that we really need to pay attention to these things
Absolutely.
and protect these animals.
Yeah, their conservation is not just about saving a species.
Right.
It's about safeguarding the health of our planet and ourselves.
I'm starting to appreciate vultures so much more.
Yeah, they're fascinating creatures when you really start to learn about them.
Absolutely.
And they're incredibly important.
I'm ready to learn more about the conservation efforts that are going on
Yeah.
to protect them. But before we do that, why don't we take a quick break?
Sounds good.
We'll be right back to continue our exploration of the fascinating world of vulture conservation.
So welcome back to our deep dive into the world of vultures.
Before the break, we were talking about how crucial vultures are for keeping ecosystems healthy
Yeah, they really are.
and the alarming decline they're facing pretty much everywhere, especially in Cambodia.
Right.
It's just wild to me how these birds that are so often overlooked are actually so important.
Yeah, you don't really think about them until they're gone, and then you start to notice the impact.
Right, exactly.
Like that with a lot of things in nature.
I'm curious, how many different kinds of vultures are there in the world?
There are 23 different species of vultures.
23.
Yeah, it's more than most people realize.
Yeah, a lot more than I thought.
They're divided into two groups. New World vultures, which are found in the Americas, and Old World vultures, which are found in Europe, Asia, and Africa.
So are all 23 species facing these same kinds of threats?
Sadly, yes, for the most part.
Really?
Yeah, while the specific threats may vary depending on the region and the species, many vultures are struggling with habitat loss poisoning and the illegal wildlife trade.
You mentioned earlier that Cambodia is doing a pretty good job with vulture conservation.
Yeah, they're considered a leader in Southeast Asia.
What are they doing that's working?
Well, one thing is they've established protected areas where vultures can forage and breed without being disturbed by humans.
Oh, so they're like creating safe havens for them?
Exactly. It's giving them a place to recover and thrive.
What else are they doing?
They're also working to reduce poisoning incidents, which, as we discussed, is a huge problem for vultures.
Right.
They've got awareness campaigns going on to teach people about the dangers of poisoning and how to dispose of carcasses safely.
So they're tackling the problem from a few different angles.
Yeah, they're trying to be proactive.
What about that illegal wildlife trade you mentioned? How are they dealing with that?
They've stepped up law enforcement to crack down on the illegal trade in vulture parts.
Okay.
And they're also working with communities to educate people about the negative impacts of this trade and to help them find alternative ways to make a living.
So they're not just focusing on the vultures themselves, but also addressing the human factors that are driving these threats.
Right, it's a holistic approach.
How do their efforts compare to other countries,
Yeah.
especially those that have more vultures?
That's an interesting point. Cambodia may not have the biggest vulture populations, but they're really committed to conservation.
Okay.
Take India, for example. They used to have huge numbers of vultures,
Mm-hmm.
but then they experienced a devastating decline because of that veterinary drug diclofenac.
Right, the one that was causing kidney failure in the vultures.
Exactly. It was a massive problem.
What's the situation in India now?
Well, they've made a lot of progress in bringing their vulture populations back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they banned diclofenac and they started captive breeding programs to help boost the wild population.
Oh, wow. So they're actually making a comeback.
They are. It's a really encouraging story.
That gives me hope.
It shows that even after a major decline recovery is possible with the right kind of effort.
Are there any lessons that Cambodia could learn from India's experience?
Definitely, India's success really highlights the importance of having strong policies and regulations like the ban on diclofenac.
Yeah.
It also shows how effective captive breeding programs and community-based conservation initiatives can be.
Okay.
These are all areas where Cambodia can keep getting better.
It's cool to see how different countries are working on these problems and learning from each other.
Yeah, it's a global effort.
Okay, so we've talked about the threats to vultures and the efforts to protect them. But I'm wondering, what's the ultimate goal here? What does success look like when it comes to vulture conservation?
The goal is to make sure that vultures can thrive in their natural habitats and continue to play their important role in the ecosystem.
Okay.
That means protecting their populations, reducing the threats they face, and promoting ways for humans and vultures to coexist peacefully.
So it's about more than just numbers. It's about making sure they can survive and fulfill their ecological role.
Exactly.
What can regular people do to help make that happen?
There are lots of things people can do. Supporting organizations that are working on vulture conservation is a big one.
Okay.
We've talked about a few of them, but there are many more out there doing great work.
Right.
Spreading awareness is also really important. Talk to your friends and family about vultures, share what you've learned from this deep dive, and challenge those negative stereotypes.
I like that challenge, those negative stereotypes.
Yeah, because they really don't deserve that bad reputation.
No, they don't.
And even small changes in our daily lives can make a difference.
Like what?
Well, for example, supporting sustainable agriculture.
Huh?
By choosing products from farms that don't use harmful pesticides, you're indirectly helping to protect vultures from poisoning.
No, that's a quite.
And reducing our overall consumption, especially of plastics.
Okay.
Plastic pollution is a growing threat to all kinds of wildlife, including vultures.
Wow, it's amazing how interconnected everything is.
It is.
By making these choices, we're not just helping vultures, we're helping the whole planet.
Exactly. It's all about recognizing that we're part of nature, not separate from it.
Right, and our actions have consequences.
So good and bad.
So listeners, I hope you'll take what you've learned from this deep dive and put it into action.
Yeah, get involved.
Support those conservation organizations, spread the word about vultures, and make choices that are good for the environment.
And don't underestimate the power of your voice. Contact your elected officials, speak up for vultures in your community, and let your passion for these birds inspire others to join the cause.
I love that this has been such an incredible journey, and I've gained a whole new appreciation for vultures.
Me too.
They're not just scavengers, they're vital members of the ecosystem, playing this essential role in keeping things balanced and even protecting human health.
It's been great sharing this deep dive with you.
Yeah, I've learned so much.
I hope you have too.
I think we all have.
Yeah.
So let's keep exploring, learning, and taking action to create a world where vultures can soar freely and keep doing what they do best.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive about vultures.
We have.
We've talked about their importance, the threats they face, the conservation efforts going on around the world.
Yeah.
But now I want to focus on what we can all do to help.
Okay.
What actions can we take to make a difference for these birds?
Well, one of the most important things is to support organizations that are actively working to conserve vultures.
Yeah, like the ones we mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Those are just a few examples.
Right.
There are many others out there doing amazing work.
All right, so even a small donation can help.
Absolutely. Every little bit counts.
Okay, what else can we do?
Spreading awareness is huge.
Okay.
Talk to your friends and family about vultures. Share what you've learned from this deep dive. Try to change those negative perceptions that people have.
It's like changing the narrative.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes just starting a conversation can lead to bigger changes.
Definitely.
I think it's important to remember, too, that even small actions in our daily lives can have an impact.
Absolutely.
Like what we buy, what we eat.
Yeah, for example, supporting sustainable agriculture.
Okay.
Choosing products from farms that don't use harmful pesticides. That's a big one.
Right, because that indirectly protects vultures from poisoning.
Exactly.
And reducing our overall consumption, especially when it comes to plastics.
Yeah, that's crucial. Plastic pollution is a huge problem for wildlife everywhere, and vultures are definitely not immune to it.
It's amazing how it all connects.
It really is.
We make these choices and we think we're just, doing something small, but it actually has a ripple effect.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that we're part of this larger system and our actions have consequences for everything around us.
So to our listeners, I hope you'll take what you've learned from this deep dive and turn it into action.
Yeah, get out there and make a difference.
Support those conservation organizations, spread the word about vultures, and make choices that are good for the planet.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to use your voice.
Right. Speak up for vultures in your community. Contact your elected officials. Let people know that you care about these birds.
Exactly.
This has been such an incredible journey for me. I have to say, I've gained a whole new respect for vultures.
Me too.
They're not just scavengers. They're essential parts of the ecosystem, keeping things in balance and even protecting human health.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing when you think about it.
I think we've all learned a lot from this deep dive.
I hope so.
So let's keep exploring, learning, and taking action to create a world where vultures can thrive.
To a future where vultures can soar freely.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us.